Reverend Brooks, will lead us in the pledge today.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you stand for the pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Take the roll, please.
Mayor? Benefield? Brooks?
Here.
Freitag? Frizzalone?
Here.
Gould?
Here.
Hart? Here. Moran?
Here.
O'Gallo?
Here.
Weigel?
Here.
And Muses.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, we approval of minutes?
So
No
moved.
minutes.
No minutes, sir.
No minutes.
Okay. Old business, state report on employee transition from Public Building Commission. Nick, I don't know if we really need to, we probably, there's some probably loose ends. Let me say that, and we had a discussion at the Public Building Commission yesterday. When it comes to the court maintenance, it's really an agreement that goes between the sheriff and the executive's office to do those functions. It is the sheriff that's ultimately responsible for the maintenance of the courthouse. So I assume, that's been done. I don't know what action our board would take, county board, outside of recognizing that, be done. There's going to be, I think, some budgetary issues. The state's attorney, I believe, has advised us that funding should go to the sheriff, and then the sheriff should send it over. I think we can work that out during the budget period, just to clarify it. Mary, I think we can make sure that's clarified during the budget. County board, I believe, will follow whatever the state's attorney advises us to do, so we stay on the straight and narrow. It was brought up at the Public Building Commission yesterday by their attorney that the lease for the juvenile detention says that the Public Building Commission is responsible for the maintenance of that in the lease. He recommended that there should be some type of agreement between the Public Building Commission and the county. The executive's office is going to do that maintenance. So I think we need to work on that. Mary, maybe you can also talk to the Public Building Commission, because our partner there is Kankakee, and because there's still outstanding bonds. It's not that the Public Building Commission can't say the county's going to do it. There just has to be an agreement in place. Just like there should be an agreement in place between the county and the sheriff's department. So, and I think all parties should understand, for example, the sheriff is still responsible. He was responsible to the Public Building Commission that did the work. So they had a clear understanding, get the agreements in place that, and I was, in our case, I will say what the state's attorney thinks needs to be in place, and I think it's just kind of good to go. I know you want to move more on the 17th. I don't know if any of this delays that action, or I think everybody's in agreement. So I don't know if you have any.
Well, just to summarize what I think the action items are, is we have not done it yet, but we are going to do probably an MOU between the sheriff and the county executive, and we'll spell it all out to everyone's agreement what that role is, because I don't think we've ever done that before, but we're looking forward, is we're going to say, yes, the sheriff has responsibility for this by the statutes, but he's agreeing to allow us, assuming he agrees to all the details. And he's in the audience, so we'll talk about it, Sheriff. But then the budgetary issues, we didn't know that the money, when we created this budget, we created half a year at PBC and half a year under the county executive office. It's new information, we'll deal with it going forward, but if there's something that can be done differently, we'll do it differently and follow the law and the state's attorney's guidance in the next fiscal year. But that would probably be part of the MOU too, is how that's gonna all work out. On the River Valley, you were correct that, I wasn't at the meeting, but I was told that the lease says PVC, but like the courthouse, I think the kind of the intent, although it wasn't written that way, was once the bonds are paid off, that work would shift back to somewhere else unless we chose to leave them there, I guess. But we're gonna have to probably amend those agreements anyway, because once the bonds are paid off for Kankakee, there's still 10 years left on that, but.
The lease actually goes to 2026, everybody knows.
But I think there's ongoing discussions, and I think there's a meeting tomorrow with PVC,
Yes.
Jim Ellis, Sue over there, and staff from the county executive's finance department to review what projects are ongoing, how much money is needed for ongoing maintenance. And we would like to get to a point where we say to Kankakee, here's what we know we need from you to do the operation and maintenance on a yearly basis. And at some point, come back with potentially a proposal to modify that, so we're comfortable, because this has been a topic of the building commission, means how much money do we actually need from them year to year? Because they've got a lot of financial issues, we want to make sure they're paying us enough money to maintain the buildings. So,
Let me say, the other thing I would look at, by the way, the Public Building Commission Board gave the authority for chairman to execute an agreement. So you can work that out before they meet. So he has the authority to execute an agreement between the Public Building Commission and the county. So
I heard that.
okay, so you don't have to wait till they meet again, so you can move that forward. And the other question is that, my thought is, but here again, we'll have to ask council, that the Kankakee would probably continue to have to pay Public Building Commission. Same thing, this is more of a financial, and then there's the Public Building Commission and send the money over to the county.
My understanding, talking with bond counsel previously for both the Will County and Kankakee, was that kind of obligation is set in stone until the end of next year when they pay their last bond payment. At that point, I think all parties can agree to a modification, and we'll bring that to this board, we'll bring it to the PVC board, and Kankakee will have to bring it to their board, a modification of here's how much we believe we need each year to year for the maintenance. And I think that's the right way to go.
My thought is that probably the payment, lease payment by Kankakee would continue to go to the Public Building Commission. I don't know how it would work coming here, but maybe it can be worked out.
Yeah, I don't
But that's how, we'll leave that to the lawyers.
Right.
Okay, so.
PVC doesn't have a seat on our PVC board, so Kankakee doesn't have a seat on our, so really they're kind of just a quiet partner or an unspoken partner, whatever, so they're just paying us money to rent the space, or they own the space.
They own the space, they pay us for
25%.
operations.
Right.
And it's just not, they pay not just for maintenance, understand, they pay for
years too.
They pay for the day-to-day operation too. So
And there's a different formula, I know.
So it's basically like 25/75. So then it becomes a little more complex.
Right.
So I think they're going to ask us if we want to buy them out. No. All right. Okay. Is there any other old business? New business?
Jury reimbursement.
Oh, jury reimbursement, I'm sorry.
Okay, what are we
Jury
talking about with
reimbursement,
that?
here's what it is, we're moving forward because new legislation hasn't been enacted, so we're gonna have our public hearing at the county board meeting. And we will set the fees. And if something else passes, I think the intent then is we'll modify it.
Okay.
I don't know what else we could do. We have to be prepared, I guess.
Yes.
To do this. We'll be prepared, and then if it needs to be amended, we'll amend it.
Right. Okay.
So this is just to remind everybody, there will be and there has been good communication with the chief judge and so forth.
And I agree and understand that. My only thing is if we amend it, then we're gonna have to have another public hearing.
Yeah, we would.
Even if we were lowering the fee?
Yes.
You're doing the public hearing on the fee for the alternate and extra jurors.
Right.
And that's what the hearing's about.
Right.
Otherwise, the statute says what you have to reimburse jurors for, and that's statutory. So in terms of this is under old business, just to update you that The amendments of the bill are still, I mean, those discussions are still ongoing. And then down, when you get to new business, you'll see under number 3, you're dealing with the fees for the alternate indentures, and that's what the public hearing is for.
And you know, my guess is that that's an optional, thing, so they can get extra jurors or they cannot. It's up to the parties, right? Okay, on the new business, construction management, RFQ. Here again, I think we should start to move forward and pre-qualify construction management firms to have a pool, just like we have for architects. I think it moves us a little bit closer to when you get ready, that we can move fairly quickly. The only question I would have is, in an RFQ, we're probably looking for different types of firms that can do smaller jobs, ones that can do mega jobs. So I don't know, the only thing I would say in writing an RFQ is, do we put in there from managing jobs from whatever, $1 million to up or what? Hey, I'm just wondering, I don't want to discourage smaller firms, I guess is what I'm saying. So I'm thinking, how do you write to encourage smaller firms to participate?
If we have a few days to talk about this, I could talk to some of the representatives of general contractors here, see what their bonding ability is, because what limits them on the smaller contractors is how much performance bond they can get, and that sometimes they have to put a performance bond up even if they don't get the job, so they can only, they have with the expectation they might get it. So they're limited in what they can bid, so we should try to find out what that is.
Well, and I think from that standpoint, being able to set that as part of one of the RFQs, because you're talking about qualifications, right? So in the whole process, we could ask those kind of questions, and I think that's partly what I would suggest is, as we take a look at this, is you ask questions that qualify small, medium, and large operations, because we do have enough of those kind of projects, and we should be able to say, what are our top 5 small groups for this kind of project? What's our medium and large? And at that point, in fact, I've kind of overheard through the grapevine that we're supposed to be doing tours. I would stop all of this stuff of having any conversation with any company at all until we have an opportunity to put together this RFQ and actually put together a list of these companies. And then once we've chosen the top 5, and we want, or part of the RFQ process is going out and visiting some of their work sites, I don't have a problem doing that. But at this particular point, at juncture, why do it at all? I mean, we're wasting our time, and I think there might not be any impropriety, but what it would look like could be misconstrued as something that it's not.
Getting back to the issue of putting an RFQ together.
Yeah.
Because when we have qualified folks, and those who do, those who can help with smaller, I'll use, for example, we're doing the job over at the First and West Building, redoing that space for the sheriff. If we had a list, and I think it enabled us also to do more things in-house. For those jobs, say up to $3-4 million. I think enabled us to do more in-house, because then we just have somebody who's, the bigger jobs, I think, either have to go to a public building commissioner, or you have to form another group that oversees it within the county board. So I think that, that's my objective. That I think should be our objective, Reagan, and I will get that.
Mike had his hand up first.
I would just think that we would be able to put an RFQ together that you would check the box for which you want to be qualified for, small, medium, or large, and you could put all 3 if you want, or you could put just one, because the criteria behind it should be very similar. So someone may just say, I want to qualify for the small ones, I want to qualify for all 3.
Part of the problem is it changes, because you'll get contractors who'll join together, do a joint venture to increase your bonding ability, or they may forego bidding on a project because they want to bid on a particular project so that they could increase their bonding ability. It's a pretty complicated thing, the decisions that they have to go through in order to decide how big a job
And that's a
they
good,
can bid on.
that's a good point, Don. The other thing that about, we get a lot of partnering because of bonding issues in our projects. In RFQ, do we give them some ability to team up together within the group?
But then if we're gonna do that ahead of time, like you said, then there's too many variables, then we have to go out for RFQ for the two projects we have in front of us and say, this is
Yeah.
generally the scope or price of this one, and then if they wanna put together, then we may qualify 5 groups of teams for each project.
Well, that's what I'm saying, will we qualify people who say we're partnering? And then these are other issues, I'm just trying to see, I'm not saying, if they say, well, here, we got AB company, and we're presenting to qualify as a team. Do we allow
I
that?
missed the last executive committee meeting because I was out of town, but I'd certainly like to be part of the conversation on this.
Okay.
if it's gonna
Well,
be this
and
much.
I think one of the things you want to have with the qualifications aspect here is you're talking about companies that have expertise in certain areas. Some of them are very heavy on the architect, others are heavy on the engineering, and putting those kind of groups together, we can work the team thing. I mean, I think what we're talking about here is coming up with some of these guys automatically put teams together anyway, and they may put their teams together. As we put this RFQ, that might be one of the discussions we have. Are we looking for a team of folks to say, hey, look, we got this jail to do, the courts to do, we have the sheriff's administrative building, all these different groups.
And I want to make this as inclusive
But
as we can.
But it's also got to be project oriented, I think, to start with, because we have.
We've got 2
All right, I'm going to recognize our capital chair, Reagan, sorry.
Well, and I obviously agree with you, Jim, I want to do anything to move these projects faster. But, going to kind of what you've all been saying, my issue is that each one of these jobs are job specific, and each one of these companies do a specific type. So I worry that it's too all-inclusive, there's too many variables going on, and maybe that's going to backfire on us. And again, I'm open to new ideas, and if this works, it works. I just worry that, and do we have a solid decision? Are we doing the courthouse first? Are we doing the sheriff's facility first? Are we doing, you know what I mean? And so, and then my second thing is that, does this list go stale at some point?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Good word.
So, I don't know.
Well, here's what I think, why don't we do this? I'm going to put this over to the capital committee. Let's get a recommendation from the capital committee, whether they feel they want to move forward in this manner, or right from now, they just want to do they'll do RFQs for projects as they come out. Like I said, part of my thought was it helps us with smaller jobs.
And maybe that's all we do. Maybe we just do a list for that under 3 million kind of rearrangement. But again, if I throw it out to capital.
Yes, so we probably would then wait to do RFQs until we're, now we have a project. Okay, so, Nick, did you want to?
A couple of comments have been made, which I would have already made too, but I think we do have, frankly, 4 projects potentially, and some are further out. Sheriff's facility, courthouse, northern satellite at some point, and health department at some point. So those are the 4 big projects. We've already knocked a few of the smaller projects off our list over the last 3 or 4 years. The Social Security, First Midwest, what we're doing currently, and Court Annex Emco, which we've done. So we had talked about that previously about doing it for architect. I don't know that we ever did a pool per se, but we had Andy Partek, for those who have been around, Andy Partek's worked on that building extensively. So I don't know if he was selected in the bid process originally, but he's been kind of the guy for that building, and we just kept, and it was perfectly legit under our purchasing orders what we did with him. With Social Security and First Midwest, for the building we bid it out obviously, but we had Brian Kronwitter as part of the program design, and then I don't think we did a bid, we just did professional services with him to do the construction management. And this is more just, and you know this, Jim, I know it probably Chuck too, but I don't know if everybody else does. some of the smaller projects in the past, Mike Nicolini as maintenance director managed the project, acted as a construction manager, but he's got a lot on his plate. We agreed to hire Brian and Cordigan Clark to manage that this time, so that's something he didn't have to do. So, but I agree that I think we should be doing it site-specific, because part of our success in our bids that have come back is we've been very specific. And I think that's why we've been very successful in getting very good bids. The sewer and water project, the social security building, and the court annex have all come in within what we targeted because we were very specific. And the RFQs are pretty broad because we're just asking for qualifications, we're not asking for a price. So I think we should, but there are differences we've all seen who participate in the court selection and in the court programming. Is there are some firms that specialize in courthouses and some that tend to specialize in sheriff's facilities or other buildings. So, but
Well, I don't want to tell you, my thought was is that you would have all these companies, and then you wouldn't just say, they get this, you get this, you would still interview them. And they would still give you the proposal.
Jim, isn't this getting moved to Capitol? Can we just
Yeah,
move this to Capitol? and-
Can I ask a question though? And during this process though, I don't know who can answer this question. Is there set aside for female minority companies? None at all? No.
You know, but basically, let me say on that, you know, and this is why we try to include, we do it internally. To try to get participation, by the way, but it's not a set aside, because, you know.
Is there a mandate? Is there any type of federal or state mandate?
The mandate is that you
Depends on
cannot
the
consider
funding.
them.
for the funding for federal
Funding.
road projects, I believe there may be state money, but our local project, we do not have a set policy for that.
And we don't see that as a problem with
Well,
Will?
no.
Not worried about prejudice.
Because I don't want to confuse set-asides with trying to get good participation.
No, I understand that. I understand.
And it's not that we don't tell our contractors, we'd like to see a certain type of participation. Or we've done workshops to get small business people, minority business people involved in projects. We've shown them how to partner with larger companies.
We've also worked with them to make sure the local representation is even if we have an outside.
I understand all your comments, I appreciate it, but there's a reason for it and there's a place for it, so I'll just shut up.
Let's go over to Capitol.
We did years ago, by the way, but when there was a ruling by the Supreme Court saying this, you could not do this.
That's why I asked it, there's better, okay.
Yeah, there was a, you know.
Can I just respond to one other comment? I don't want to argue about this, but I just want to explain what our past practice has been as far as bidding, and I think we've adhered to this pretty tightly, is prior to a bid being actually drafted or released, we have had conversations with potential vendors of all projects.
Yeah.
But it's, at least from the executive's office, we've been very strict about, once a bid is released, there's no more informal conversation. All conversation goes to a purchasing director. That way the playing field is level. Any questions are asked are distributed to everyone, and the answers are distributed to everyone. But just to give a few examples, we have just recently had demos for, well, some are a little longer ago. The real estate system, we had demos by prospective vendors. The state's attorney's case management system, prior to them actually drafting the RFQ, we've had demos by prospective vendors. Once, now they're getting to the phase, state's attorney, and that's going to be on the agenda, I think next month, is they're going to draft a RFQ. Then those conversations stop, because we don't want to create an appearance of impropriety. But some of this, the intent of the tour that was mentioned, it wasn't everybody was invited, because we don't want to have open meetings by act violation, but was for educational purposes, and try to, when we go to those tours and somebody participated in the ones on courts, what would you do differently? What, now that you've done the project? And then we bring that back to the committee. It wasn't to...
But those tours usually generated out of the committee.
I don't want to get into a big debate about this. I mean, generally that is generated out of the committee and not the executive's office. But for example, we did tours of courthouses, some actually in other states, but it was done by our consultant. It was who would have no further interest outside to educate us. I think that
With the direction of the committee.
I think it's a better idea if there's going to be tours to have, and I'm just going to use it as a consultant, like I'm not sheriff's facility. You know, have DLR put something together, and we can go on tours of different jails we want to look at. Because they would have no further interest. You know, we're gonna go beyond this. I think I've made my position clear, and
It's going to
I just think
capital.
it's a better idea. There's a better way of doing it. So I'm just going to leave it
It's
there.
going to capital. Can we just get it to capital?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Got a lot to
Okay.
talk about.
Would you cut her off on the coffee?
Okay, that was just a discussion item, okay. Discussion, reallocation of landfill revenues and other revenues for capital projects. Again, this will be a general discussion. Mike, I'm gonna probably kind of bring you in here. You know, this is just a discussion of, are we gonna dedicate those funds? What funds stay with solid waste? What funds can be used? I do think we're gonna have to, Bruce, you might jump in here. I do think we have to look at what can be used in general and what has to stay for solid waste. But I think the intent is just to identify revenue streams for potential capital projects.
Yeah, I think that there's some background work that still has to be done. I think the only real issue for today is, do you want to keep this on the executive committee agenda? Do you want to move to finance?
I think it's good.
Yeah.
We'll move this to finance, okay?
Yeah. Just keep it. I think revenue
They're
source we can
basically
find.
looking at revenue sources that could potentially be used for capital projects. It's an ongoing, because we haven't gotten there yet, and then there's, you know, Melissa?
There is, the gas to energy is currently being, it is, gas to energy revenues are going to 304 capital currently. So if you wanted to allocate additional or others, we could do so, and we could look at all those agreements. But a solid waste plan, we'd have to look into that, and we need Bruce for that.
I do think there's money, there's a percentage that has to stay with solid waste. And I think there's a percentage of those revenues that can be used for general purposes. I'm just.
We can tighten those purse strings in
Yeah,
other
but
places.
that takes a little, that's gonna take a little bit more research.
Yeah.
So hopefully they'll have
Yeah.
answers by they get to the capital, finance committee.
By the time we get ready to move to, that'll allow us to look at taking it from there and then back off on something else, RTA or whatever it is.
All right.
Okay?
Better direction.
All right. Setting parameters for fees for the alternate jurors.
already
We
discussed.
discussed that already.
We need a motion to move that.
We need a
to-
motion to move that forward. Move.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion reducing the number of polling places. The clerk is not ready yet, so we're going to remove this until she's ready. I think she's going to bring it back in July. Are you out there?
No, she didn't bother coming. I told her she
Okay.
didn't.
I think she's going to bring this back in July.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to remove this from the
So moved.
agenda. Moved, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Update on integrated justice and ad hoc committee, state's attorney, public defender, case management system. You know, Nick, I know I've already asked you for this, but, I would like to see if we can distribute a written, so people kind of know, and then you can do an overview. That way, if people have any
Sure.
questions or whatever, they can keep
I
prepared.
can
But go
provide
ahead.
the minutes, and it'd probably be helpful to provide an overview report, because the minutes always don't
Right.
capture everything. But can I give a very brief?
Executive summary,
Can I give a really brief?
Yep, yep.
So this was at judicial this month. Just for everyone, if you don't know, we have an integrated justice ad hoc committee. It's all the criminal justice or judicial partners. We have it, last year we didn't meet as regularly. Now we're back on a regular meeting schedule. In around 2010, we did a review, paid for a vendor to come in through a bid process, did a report, kind of an overview of the whole system, cost estimates, 5-year plan, contingent upon funding, obviously, which we haven't had a lot of funding, but that study was funded through an earmark we received, federal earmark, so no corporate funds were used. One of the projects they identified was the state's attorney, public defender, case management system, which is a real problem currently. Their budget projection was $1.5 million over 5 years, an initial purchase and then maintenance cost. And the problem identified was there is currently not, and there remains, when the study was done until today, a single case management system in place, which creates problems not only for the state's attorney's office, but also the public defender and down the line to the local police departments. if you, we had an example in the committee, we spent a lot of time talking about large files with lots of pictures and documents. Since it's hard copy, not electronic, one person can only be working on it at a time, whereas an electronic version, multiple people could be working on it. So it's all about innovation, or I'm sorry, automation, information sharing, and really helping the whole system. So the committee was very supportive of it. It all comes down to funding. We have earmarked $100,000 in this year's budget, $100,000 next year's budget, just because that was the money we had available to us. We are continuing to seek out grants and potentially other funds within the county government that could help get this off the ground. And as I already mentioned, there have been a couple demonstrations. There were a couple questions at committee about servers and things like that. The people who are responsible for that will write that into the bid. But they've had demos. We're going to get the RFP ready to go. And then once we identify the funding and know that we can pay for it, we will get it on the street. But this is a huge problem. We've heard from all the criminal justice partners that this would be a huge step forward in integration and electronic judicial system. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna say this is another capital project, really.
Right.
It doesn't need to be addressed. I don't think anyone's gonna question our need to modernize and to have better interoperability between the agencies or the departments. So it really comes down to really capital priority and then like funding. And we probably need a good idea. I think we're gonna need a good estimate of what we're looking at. And we probably need, if we're gonna look at next year, we probably need to have a good idea so we can look at funding, budgeting in next year. Yes, Tom?
There's, the Integrated Justice Committee's got several different things that you're looking at. Could there be a little more comprehensive report in electronic ticketing, warrant service? There's a lot of other things that are going on in that committee.
We can make available to you if you're interested. It's pretty dry reading, but the entire report, there's also, I think there was an executive summary to that report. But the committee, the Integrated Justice Committee, has kind of agreed, there's a consensus that this is the first big piece. We have done some smaller projects through grants, but this is the next big piece that I think there's kind of a universal acceptance that this is the next big. But you're right. There are
Electronic ticketing's pretty close to it.
And they've done some of that already. But that would tie into this ideally, so that it would all be seamless systems.
One of the things that just kind of alludes to in this conversation with people trying to come under one auspices of software is the need for systematically looking at our server systems and starting having some of, again, this discussion is where's all this stuff going to reside, and can we look at integrating IT systems? That's not saying that we're going to dismiss one group or another group from, controlling their data or their information, but when you start taking a look at the hardware, it's definitely a lot more cost efficient. And when you take a look at other counties, these guys are having single database server system or single systems hardware aspect that they can put all their different software in, so that you can manage it, make sure it's more secure, have a lot better backups, and not have to have all these little independent boxes sitting around there. And I, for one, don't want to have a conversation on this just from a software standpoint. I would really like to have us have a really open conversation about, and we don't control the courts, the sheriffs, all these, and I know they, once they get their budget out there, they can go and buy whatever they want. But man, it'd sure be nice if we started having this conversation to get all these hardwares under one roof.
Chuck,
And
those cover the goals.
Those conversations are ongoing. I'm not the technical expert, but you can come to attend the technical committee where they talk about that, where the people who manage those. We are making steps in that, but the issue.
But the issue becomes aware of is getting the owners, the existing leadership in the different, not departments, but elected officials to start having the conversation that they're willing to work with us on this.
Well, and the electronic device, my understanding, would allow you to have this central file that has permissions. So, because that's the issue, is what the state's attorney can see versus what a public defender can see at what point is is gotta be tagged.
And you understand I'm talking a lot bigger than just this.
Right, but those conversations are ongoing, and we're looking for ways, but if the challenge is, there's multiple elected officials or offices and different laws that govern the judicial folks versus the rest of the folks, and, I mean, that's the challenge, but for what it's worth, there is a national standard, and there are some kind of, it's XML and NIEMS, I think, NIMS, I think is the term, but there's NEMS, there are national standards, because the goal is, you may have this system, you may have this system, but can they talk to one another? And they call it the bus that can drive between the different systems, so, but you're welcome to
But,
come to
and
this
that's the
technology.
software aspect of it, and I understand that.
But there's a hardware too.
But there's a hardware aspect
I
of
mean,
it that we
that's
need
why
to make sure.
our IT department has gone to virtualized environments and.
Nick, could you get us those meeting dates, and I'd love to have Judy participate if she's available with her background in technology as well.
Yeah, if I could just move this along, you know, one of the things, Nick, that I would ask for is that some of this group has automation fees and fees that potentially they could put towards the cost of a system. So, yeah, I'd like to also, when you're ready to give the report, to say, you know, what funds they can commit for the overall capital expenditure. I know they've used some of those funds to actually help operate these systems.
Right.
And they've used it for personnel.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
Shifted
personnel.
from
A
corporate.
lot of folks.
So, but still, I would like to see what they feel is available. At this point, we have so many projects, so little money. Everything's going to count here. So, yeah, I think that the finance committee should be aware of. There could be, even if they're small amounts of money overall, what might be available out of those special funds. Okay. That would be an overall report, so, all right. Anything else, Dennis?
Nope.
Okay. Where am I at?
Number 6,
Number
Lois.
6, quarterly update report for the Will County grant writer. Lois, you here?
I'm going to give a quick,
She was?
she's
Yeah,
here.
she's
I'm going to give a
here.
quick introduction and then let her
Okay,
speak.
yeah.
It's on your iPad, but I'm passing around a hard copy because we made some modifications late and just got this into you guys, but it is on your system, I was told. Per the request of the board, in Lois's annual contract, we included some more regular updates to the board. So this is kind of the first attempt at that. We have a report that's coming around, and Lois is going to walk you through it, but on a monthly basis, Lois submits invoices to me and a report, so I've been monitoring that on a monthly basis, but we wanted to come before you because I know there's been questions. Very quickly, and I'll let Lois expand on this, she is seeking both public and private funds. Primarily, the public funds are federal and state funds. She gets from our federal lobbyists, from our state lobbyists, and from some of you, ideas. So she's going through literally hundreds of grant opportunities, filtering those down through our departments and elected officials, and then gets to a point where she's either starting to pursue them or actually does pursue them. Some wash out during that process, and people say, well, we're not ready to pursue that this year.
Thank you.
Some are being postponed to next year, but the report you have before you is kind of the primary ones that are either actively being pursued and submitted, or maybe pursued for future application. But we wanted to show you kind of the work she's doing, and hopefully that it results in success each year. And I think last year, Lois, your total was somewhere like $750,000. We actually won in grant applications. Some formula, some private sector, some actual competitive grants. So I'll turn it over to Lois.
I'd be happy to answer any questions on the report. Maybe just to highlight, there were, one of them that we submitted was the Veterans Grant, which is a $100,000 program that will fund vision and hearing for our veterans in Will County. And the next time you buy a lottery ticket to scratch off veterans, that's where the pool of money comes from at the state level for this grant. So if you don't think that lottery money comes back home, it has, which is really a good thing. Another project was the Bulletproof Vest project, which we worked with the Sheriff's Department. And we also brought in the Forest Preserve, who we submitted them also within this project. So To date, we've submitted about $600,000 worth of grants and have received 150. So the receiving end, some can take up to 3 or 4 months. You know, I will keep you appraised on that, so.
Lois, don't you also, I mean, it's not in this report, but don't you also help maintain and manage some of our current? You get a little bit involved with that?
If needed, absolutely. Typically, I work on the front end of the grants. However, when there's a transition, for example, within the Sheriff's Department, there was change. I worked with them in terms of helping them organize with their DUNS number, their SAMS number. You know, quote, is some of these systems are kind of convoluted, which they are, and you know, you just have to stay on top of it. So absolutely, if they need help at the receiving end, I do. So.
Any of these an annual repeat?
No. Well, we do have repeat grants. For example, the Children's Advocacy Center, which I don't have on here, that was a straight state grant that we received, I think, 4 years ago. And that's ongoing. That's $25,000 every year. So I probably should.
There's some, Chuck, like the OVW, Office Against Violence Against Women.
Yeah.
We were successful several years back. The county was state's attorney. Received an award, I think, of $750,000, then got a renewal of that for $750,000. Then we didn't get it. I don't know if they didn't apply or they weren't just eligible, but now we're eligible, so Lois is working with state's attorney and others to try to see if we can apply for that again. The one thing that's not on here, but we did last year with Lois, was the Justice Assistance Grant, which we just got notice of that the other day, so that'll be coming in June, probably the judicial. Lois has helped in the application and submittal process, but then to your question, Jim, our finance department, a portion of some of the internal staff's time is dedicated to helping with those reporting. And for example, on the JAG grant, Lois helped us apply for that, but then Anastasia Tusky from our office, the consultants, we had Robert Crown and Kathleen Burke who did the NARCAN, they are actively working the projects, but some of our internal staff are keeping the reports and kind of keeping up on them. So it is a tag team effort, but Lois is more, like she said, on the front end, less on the back. So.
Any other questions?
In regards to the adult redeploy, I know there's, just being in the courthouse, I know there's some problems going on right now in regards to the ARI contract between the state's attorney and Public Defender's Office. I just worry, and I've been saying on top of that, I just worry that if we don't get that contract finalized, that
No, it won't affect the funding. We can still administer the grant without a courtroom.
Okay.
So we're fine.
Okay.
We have amended our grant report so that it reflects that we don't have a courtroom.
Okay.
And we're moving forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, Lois, I just was wondering, some of these say we did not apply in 2015. Why is that? We did not apply for specific.
It's typical working with some of the departments that will get 3/4 of the way through with the project and some may pull out for whatever reason. And I'll just use the OVW as an example. For the last 2 years, I've gotten to the point where the abstract was completed, the budget was completed, the narrative was completed, but for whatever reason that department opted to pull out. One of the reasons, and that's why we're we're having meetings around this particular grant. Actually, next week, we have a meeting scheduled. Originally, when we received that grant, we had a very broad ability to implement it. Now, the Department of Justice is suggesting that we use this program called Blueprint for Safety. So when the department realized that was part of the criteria, I think that might have been one of the reasons they pulled out of it. So with us planning now for next year, really taking a close look at what this blueprint is and how we implement it, I think we'll be in a better position to submit it, absolutely. A second one that I feel very passionate about, and hopefully we can work on it for next year, and we are coordinating meetings around it, is the Drug-Free Community Grant. It's an amazing opportunity. It will take our heroin project to the next level. When I look at a grant announcement, I always look at how many they're going to award nationwide, and I'll typically see 15, I've seen up to 40. This one they are awarding 182, which is really big, so that means our opportunity is really there. The only downside with that is there's a 100% match, which is I've never seen, I'll usually see 50, 25%, but 100% match is really big. So that's why we're coordinating meetings around this. There's some criteria that we have to put together that's required within that grant. For example, we have to have a strong coalition that has meetings and meeting minutes, and that's something we can do over the next 6 months. But again, that's an amazing opportunity. It is a big match, but it would be just, like I said, it would take our heroin project to the next level to have funding like that.
Question, how often are you in contact, or are you in contact with our lobbyists in DC?
Probably on a monthly basis. And it
So
depends-
Smith and Dawson, you're contacting these guys about, because when we were out there,
He
Communication for the agent.
He sends
He
notice.
sends Lois.
Brett sends notice to Bruce, Freefeld, myself, and Lois on a regular basis. So, and then when Dawson, because of the lack of earmarks, they've shifted their focus more to these federal grants. And so Lois has worked with them on getting letters of support from the congressional delegation on certain grants. But they're constantly sending us. The challenge, and maybe this is more to Judy's question too, is some of these grants are great, they sound great, but when we talk to the departments, they say, well, here's kind of our core mission, and this has taken us to the right or to the left. And it's like, we don't always, it may be a good grant, but not good grant for us.
well, and one of the things I'm going to suggest is, besides just talking to our lobbyists, you want to call those agencies sometimes directly, and get a hook in with these folks, because Nick, you have to have some cards, I know I do, and bypass our lobbyists out there, because those agencies are going to know more about what their expectations are, and you should be able to get a much better handle on whether it's going to be a fit or a not fit.
Well,
because
Lois,
of
I'm
the way they
assuming
talk
you already
about
do that.
Basically do, yeah.
You do that.
I do. I probably 3 times a week. I
Yeah,
get
she's very
grant
much in
announcements.
contact.
Yeah.
That's a good opportunity to
That's
say
good.
Direct
that.
I'm not
contact
here.
is
It's
good.
an opportunity for you to say,
Direct
"Look, I
contact
already do
with
that."
them.
I already do that.
Yeah,
Don,
that's
Don,
fine.
you have a question?
I was just gonna ask if, you know, when we were out in DC and we met with the Department of Justice, I know that some of these things are a little bit duplicative on the federal side, but there's more than one agency giving grants for bulletproof vests, for instance. The Department of Justice has grants for that, as does Department of Homeland Security. And the spreadsheet doesn't tell us which one or both that we applied for. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't say what department, under federal,
I know
state,
the
or private.
agency that-
It doesn't say what agency that is, and I'd be curious to know that information.
We'll let that.
Any other questions for Lois? Lois and I go back a long way.
What's
Keep it
that?
up. I say Lois and I go back a long way, for
back.
those that you don't know. But keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Authorizing the county executive to execute a professional service.
No, 7.
No, no,
Oh, you missed 7.
Health Department.
Directing public billing commission to fund and manage the completion of the health department repairs. John?
Good morning. Back to the project discussion. Recall, back in 2012, the Public Building Commission undertook a significant roof project at the Health Department. And then once that was finished in 2013, the PBC managed some of the repair work inside, ceiling damage and everything that resulted as a result of the bad roof. There are still a couple of small parts of these projects that need completion. One part, there's probably some digital photos that you all have, but the way that the roofing area is configured in one part of that building, there is so much ice and snow that melts and gets down into a flat roof that there's a lot of ice damming and a lot of continued leakage, even with the new repairs. So one of the fixes that's been proposed is to put some heat tracing. Heat tracing is, minor electric cables that are run up under the shingles to keep the ice from melting, to hopefully avoid the ice damming and the resultant interior damage. That's one project. The second project is a concrete pre-stressed landing that is deteriorated and needs to be replaced. The PBC, I thought actually Jim Ellis was going to be here, but he's already been out and has looked at the work. There's some estimates in here that have been secured for those projects.
I'm a little familiar with this. First I want to say that because of the design of this building,
It's horrible.
And because the building's not level any longer, it is sunk a little bit, and not evenly sunk, and it is, I believe, our oldest building.
1926.
So it is a building that's 80 years old. I know this doesn't get a lot of attention. I guess, Reagan, I'll look at you specifically, capital share. I know we don't, you probably have not had much, we don't bring this forward, but this is also a crucial asset that needs to be replaced.
Yeah, we had tours of this place, you can't even close windows in certain parts of the building.
It's pretty bad. But anyways, but because of the design, I was actually told, you're never gonna be able to really fix this roof. Because it's just not fixable.
No, it's not. This should help. Ideally, you would not have any of the HVAC units up on that area. And then what you would probably do, there's some architectural comments attached here as well from Andy Martek. You would re-roof and totally adjust the pitch of that area. But to relocate all that HVAC that's up there, I think it's cost prohibitive. I don't think you'd want to invest.
But I do think we should, this is a little off subject, we should probably put this on our radar. Getting back to, Public Building Commission, managing it, funding it. Quite frankly, with the changes, I don't think they have the ability to manage it any longer. They're going to talk about money that's available for funding projects, John, tomorrow. I think Roshana is going over, I don't know if Dave is going over, Nick's going over. But the finance people are going to go over it, so they're going to identify what can be funded with the current resources. And like I say, once this moves over, with inflation over to the county branch, the executive branch of government, there's nobody there to manage it. They could hire somebody to manage it, but I don't think that's necessary. I think we either have to look internally to your own maintenance people, or we could look at the executive's office and look at their personnel to help manage it, or we could hire somebody to manage it. I don't know if this belongs over at Capitol.
These two small projects here, I don't think there's a big issue with the management aspect of it. It's really replacing out of FlexCore.
And by the way, the executive's office could just say to Jim Ellis, he's going to be over in the executive's office, executive branch. They can just tell Jim Ellis he's familiar with it. They can say, Jim, manage this since you've already been there.
Sure.
So I'm just saying though that direction will probably have to come from the county on this. The only folks that are going to be left at the Delinquent are a couple of administrative people. So I'm just saying they don't have the ability to manage. And the funding, Kelly said, they're going to look at that Friday. We'd have to decide whether the funding's going to come out of our capital or it's going to come out of cash reserves, or whether there's money there at the Public Building Commission.
Right. One project's about $25,000.
Right, and the other's about 20.
So we're talking about $45,000 to get the two projects that you're requesting done.
You know what, I think that, Reagan, if you're okay with this, I would just maybe ask the executive's office to look at it, come back to us. I mean, it's a small project. This is something typically that's done internally.
Yeah, and you're talking about just laying hot wires underneath the one roof
shingles.
so that you can flip it on in November.
By the way,
Thermostatically
even
controlled.
the wires doesn't help the pooling because of the pitch.
You saw the size of the roof that are draining
The
into
pooling's the problem, by the way.
Can you raise those things?
I could make about 100 statements just looking at these pictures of things that are wrong
I know.
in this design. But I mean, some of this.
It was a design in the 1920s.
Well, this was done in the 90s. This
Some of this
area.
should have been fixed. If you got all this stuff coming into this flat roof, the curbs for the HVAC equipment could be raised. So you're not really relocating the units as much as you are raising them higher. So you're roofing up higher so you don't get water infiltration. This flashing that's stuck in the shingles behind this unit that's on the pitch, looking southwest in that picture, that should have been a hogback flashing that went up the shingles a few feet, it's technical term.
Yeah.
In the architectural
Not a good
stuff,
design.
But I mean, it's just,
But it's fixable.
I hate to see heat
Maybe
tracing
better.
because that's really it's treating a symptom, it's not really fixing the problem. Did we re-shingle this? What did we
Yes.
fix when we
Yes.
fixed the roof?
Reshingle.
So when we re-shingled this thing, the contractor didn't put ice and water shield underneath the
Yes,
shingles up?
yes, but still dams up.
How far did he go up?
Twice what they normally do, I think I was told. So I'm not sure how many feet that is. The membrane on the bottom was replaced along with all the shingles.
Hey, John, come over and look up.
I'd be-
Get up on that
I mean, this
road.
was all man, well,
my
it's PVC,
brother.
I forget who the roofing engineer.
I forget who the contractor.
Don't hire him again.
He didn't make that, well,
Make them come out and fix it.
Adler got the bid,
Taylor did it.
How long ago was that work done?
2012.
2 years.
I guess,
It's good.
to your point,
Warranty is what? Warranty is what, John?
Well, those
It's
are
not a
the-
matter of warranty issues with the ice damming. That's-
It's a design problem.
It's a design,
And Don is right when they said we're good, what we're doing
right.
by
putting a
our
Band-Aid
vision,
on
we're just
There's no
we're
breach
just
in the
addressing
shingles,
the
it's just
symptom,
when
we're
it
not
when it
correcting the
dams and
problem.
the freeze thaw, it gets up under.
Did he say it was gonna dam when we did it? I mean, when we had it
Did he make-
fixed,
yeah.
did he say, but you're still gonna have problems with the damming, or it's gonna take care of you? I mean, then this guy didn't do the right job, and Don, I think, is agreeing with it.
I guess the issue isn't so much, as John has said, the managing the project. We can manage the contractor, but these two bids need to be paid for. And until the conversation, I mean, I think you said this right, the conversation tomorrow is how much money is really available at PVC. But if we just need to pull the money out of the capital budget, I mean, it's not really programmed, but
Not that,
it's not a huge amount.
We're only talking $45,000.
We're just talking 45,000. But I think, I mean, we could explore this further in the next week.
Well, that's what I'm thinking,
But
that to Don's concerns, before we award the contracts, maybe we should look at if there is some other
The issue,
approaches.
well, that's the roofing issue, which if you don't fix that, it's gonna continue to be a problem, I understand. But the second issue, number 2 on your memo from John,
That's the ramp.
is the ramp. I mean, that's a real safety issue right now. The concrete's falling off, they've got it all,
There's actually scaffolding under it to
protected from falling.
Right.
Because that's one
This
of.
is rotting, this is the,
Right.
over all the years, the
water
moisture infiltration.
infiltrating and it
Well,
rusted out.
that I think is a separate issue.
So, I mean,
And it's
I would go-
20,000.
I would go forward with that.
maybe we move that forward this month and pay for that out of capital, just because we know we have funds in there, and we're not gonna spend every dollar
To
on
me, it's
every
a
project.
liability issue, I think we need to fix
All right,
it.
what
We
do
can
do?
revisit
The other one we need to,
Hopefully, there's not gonna be
this guy
snow.
just did this 3 years ago, it shouldn't be doing that, or he should have
We
recommended
need
something
to
else.
talk to the roof consultant to find out what we actually told him to do. We need to talk to the roof.
And what he recommended to do to take care of, because that's what I think
All right,
he's
then-
talking about,
well,
is what are
you
we
know
holding him
To move
accountable?
this along then, we're going to do the ramp, I'll entertain a motion to go forward with the ramp.
Second.
You make the
Move.
motion?
Or make the motion, sorry.
Second,
I'll
aye.
second.
And then,
We're not gonna have.
and then,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
and then the funding would come from,
We got a few months.
We got a few months before we
We got a
worry
few months
about
before it freezes.
ice dam.
okay, and then the funding would come from the
304.
304.
Capital fund.
Like that part, that was
Part of the motion.
That was part of the motion.
Okay. So it doesn't
And
require a
So
resolution,
we'll do
it's
that,
just-
and on the roof, I think, let's look at it again.
I know Jim Ellis was involved when.
Jim Ellis was
So
involved.
he needs to probably reach
But I
back
think
out
they
to the
rely on, I
contractor and see.
think they relied
why is
on
it still happening.
consultants.
Yeah,
John, you need
what
to
was
be
the
involved.
agreement?
Okay. The other item, not to take any more time, but the other item that Jim Ellis suggested when we met, we're in a very reactive mode here. It's always a crisis, we have to come, this is falling, this is, to put together, obviously, we're gonna be in that facility for several more years. I think we're all realistic, we recognize
We're
that.
not gonna build a new one, so.
But what are the needs over the next 5 years in that building? So I'm gonna be talking to the Board of Health next week that we will commission a very small study of the top capital issues facing that complex, and we'll bring those forward and provide those through Nick to PVC, just to, here's what needs to be done over the next X amount of years, to keep this livable and safe.
That needs to
Well,
be
you
put
need
on
to,
capital.
you just put that to Nick, submit it to the county board office.
Okay.
For discussion at the Capitol.
Okay.
And we need to start having those discussions too. That's with too many things on the plate.
But at least we need to know what the
We
big
need to start
picture is, and it might
prioritizing.
be part of that big picture.
Right.
Absolutely.
The list wasn't
You
complete.
know, one of the things that, you know, I look at, I always look at what's the county responsible for by statute. And certainly, it affects everyone in the county. Certainly, the criminal justice system. But one of the other few things is the health department. They do all the public health for the entire county. And I think you probably haven't gotten the attention that you need. I think we've done a good job on the operational side of funding it. On the capital side, not so much. So I do think you need to put the capital needs
Yes.
together.
Can I ask just a procedural question?
Sure.
Is John is going to the Board of Health, they have funds to pay for that work?
The study.
The study?
Right.
But then so does the county board need to take action on that?
They have a separate board. I think they can take action on it.
Right.
But I always tell people,
Results
just
in the
remember, it's not something that,
We're gonna
it's
bring it up.
always nice that you bring it by
Right, and I'm
to
not
let us
suggesting
know.
that. I'm
We're gonna
just
bring the
saying
findings
They
back.
can keep moving on that, then we'll bring it back, because this should be, and this is our intent, is to include that as a enhanced 5-year plan. That's part of the purpose of the meeting tomorrow with PBC, is because ultimately, county board approves the levy that pays for all this stuff, and they're all
Right.
county facilities. So when we have, here's all the things we need to do, and these are the ones we can fund this year, these are the ones we can fund next year. I mean, you should be looking at a comprehensive list. Right now, we don't have a comprehensive list.
Okay.
Really? I thought I asked that question last time, Nick, and you waved one in front of me.
Well, it
That's
is
what you did,
comprehensive.
because I asked for that.
It's an old comprehensive list.
Oh, that,
Well,
is that the
PVC.
case? Okay, I just want to point that
All right,
out.
we're gonna move on.
Okay.
There you go, John.
All right,
Bring-
thank you,
bring-
John.
Bring
Thank
that
you.
forward,
Okay.
of all
I'll
the
show you what
capital
we
needs.
got.
The health board should go forward.
Get the study done.
It would be, you know, but I would still send over, what you're looking at, what's gonna be in the report.
Yes.
Send it to the executive's office, you send it to here, to the Capitol committee can look at it. Keep people involved.
Will do. All right.
Send
Thank
your
you.
invoice to Melissa for the.
Send the invoice to Melissa. Got it.
Okay. All right.
I don't fight. Fine here.
Where am I at?
Don, that's not what I.
Number 8.
Number 8, authorizing the county executive to execute a professional service agreement with Patrick Engineering, perform a review of the siting application to be filed by Waste Management for a second Laraway road, Mansfield.
Motion.
Second.
Move second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Number 9, extension of temporary overweight truck permits.
Move.
Okay,
Second.
move second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. You know, the only thing I'm gonna mention on this is that, you know, we're going to continue to, on a temporary basis, extend these overweight permits. But we need a more permanent solution. The county cannot, the solution is not the county continuing issuing these permits. There needs to be a bigger, I know there's discussions, and I know the IDOT has talked about some jurisdictional transfers, but I also think the state of Illinois needs to look at this, the economic engine this is, for the state of Illinois, for the agricultural community. So, I know we're working towards a permanent solution, but the permanent solution will not be we continue to extend the overweight. I mean, I don't know what the time frame would be, but there has to be some permanent solution at some point.
And the permanent solution does not involve the usage of county roads. The permanent
That's right,
solution
you're right.
involves interstate and state roads. And, you know, I don't want to get off the topic too much, but from my point of view, and looking at these intermodals and the continued growth and continued truck traffic, we need basically the state, IDOT, because those roads are their responsibility, to come in here and with their experts and have a comprehensive traffic plan for all these areas. Because, you know, you're not going to accommodate these trucks on existing roads. We need new roads. And it's gonna require a lot of federal and state cooperation. If we need a road and we need to press the Forest Service to work at Medewin, if we need a bridge over Hobolt Road, all these, over the Des Plaines, these are long-term things. But to, push it back on the county, it's not gonna work.
I agree
Our
with you
roads
there.
were not built to accommodate these kind of weights. It's not gonna work. We need new roads.
And the county cannot provide you're right, Don.
No.
I mean, this is
could've
interstate,
said it
this
better.
is interstate commerce. This is not a local transportation.
But for some reason, we are always the ones setting up the meetings, we're always the ones bending and trying to amend all these, why is it always us? It's
We're trying to
somebody has
facilitate a temporary problem, but we cannot, the county, as Don stated, we cannot provide.
These roads that were built in the
final solution.
1970s and designed for 1970s traffic, they were not designed to accommodate what's going on right now.
You know, we talked about going down to Springfield. We went a couple months ago and we wanted to have this on as an agenda item with Senator Rezin. I think we need to have that move forward and have with IDOT and others.
We do, Suzanne, I think you knew this, maybe you don't. We've had several meetings set up since that trip
With
down.
our legislators?
With IDOT, with
I know,
their
but I'm
senior
saying with our
staff. Well, I know,
legislators.
understand, but the governor's office and IDOT senior people are the ones who are gonna make the decision on this. And we've had several meetings, and I've tried to be clear on this. It's not that they're blowing us off, it's that the meetings are scheduled, and then they've gotten direction to do these listening tour sessions, which they keep setting up.
Okay.
So that's why they've resulted in 2 cancellations, but I believe we're on track for the 28th.
Yeah.
Speaker Moostis, county executive, myself, Bruce Gould, we're all gonna go down and hopefully have that conversation. However, the secretary, I believe, is in town twice in the next week, so those are good opportunities. He's coming to the country club for the chamber event, which is a paid, you have to buy lunch there, but then they have a public event, I think on Monday at Lewis. So those are 2 opportunities to speak out.
Don, are you involved at all, being
I'm
with
gonna-
Public Works and your district as well as you, Reagan?
I'm gonna try to go to the one at Lewis.
But I mean, are you
It
at all
is.
involved with this now with, With the
Nick and-
Springfield?
No, not with Springfield, but Nick has been keeping me advised about what's going on with the state, and he's exactly right, that the state they weren't blowing us off, it's just they had other things going on at that time, so that's why we had to do this extension.
I mean, they've blown us off in the past, but not
Right.
this
No, I mean,
issue.
you were-
But the important thing is, on this issue, we have had some discussion with the secretary, because Larry and I have crossed paths.
Right.
They said from this onset, this is gonna be very tough to just do a jurisdictional transfer. They said they would like, but their first offer, if you will, was to do some kind of trade to give us some other roads, because it sets a bad precedent for them. If they just take a road from us, everybody in the state's gonna say, oh, take our road, take our. So the thing that we've said to them is, if we even consider taking one of your roads, it better be a developed road that's high quality. We've done that with, for example, in the northern part of the county, we expanded Veterans Parkway, built it up, built to our standards, transferred it to Bolingbrook and Romaville. Now, it's their road, they respond, but we're not gonna take a road that immediately needs to be reconstructed for millions.
and you know, let me just expand on that a little bit. It's not even just so much what we're talking about these roads transfer, we're talking about Hobart Bridge, we're talking about other different variables that plays into this Arsenal Road. So there's other things that I would like to see us roundtable about other than just that particular, but it's that it feeds into that Arsenal.
And we should be talking to our legislators too. I'm just
Right.
saying, this meeting though, are the people who can come in.
And I know that you guys have that.
Yeah, I'm gonna put out this for information for the committee. You know, I'd like to point out that the state built Arsenal Road. They paid for it primarily, and Centerpoint put money in. The county always made it very clear that we were not going to pay for that road from day one. If we made a mistake, we should have never agreed to take the maintenance over. We should have said it's your road. So when they say, when you set up precedent, the precedent they've already set, you built the road. But, yeah, I just want to point that out, that I think this is a little different. Don?
I was just gonna say that, when we were in DC, we lobbied all the federal legislators on these transportation issues. And the CED and the Freight Advisory Board have been lobbying not only the Illinois Department of Transportation, but also the U.S. Department of Transportation to do a comprehensive traffic study of this whole region to figure out what traffic comes out of the intermodals, where it goes, how it gets there. And I think that thing needs to come immediately. And these road projects need to be expedited. They can't sit languishing on somebody's desk waiting to make some kind of political decision. They're necessary, they're needed now, they need to get moving.
And I think it's not only transportation, there's also the economic issues for Illinois, which I do also think make this a little different.
Yeah.
And this is, and so you all know too, I have, this last time I had asked the Transportation Committee Chair, Mr. Gould, if he wanted to come down to Springfield. I know it's tough to fit people's schedules, because now it's you get to leave for the entire day, but Don is always welcome as the chairman. If he'd like to designate somebody from the committee in his study, he has the ability to do that. So,
Thank you.
just want to point that out. So, okay, we'll do something else. Okay, so we're going to move on. Did we vote on?
Yes, we voted on number 9.
Can authorize the county executive to execute an agreement with the Department of the Army, the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, and the DuPage County, the DuPage River feasibility study moved by.
Motion.
No, wait.
Don't vote, don't vote.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want you to vote. This is, I'm asking you to table this number, but I want to give you a quick update on this, because since we requested it, we had a subsequent meeting with the Army Corps and DNR, so can I give you a quick brief report?
Yes.
So this is obviously a very important project. I've talked about it before at this committee. It comes from DuPage County through the northern part, through numerous county board districts. Lots of damage because of flooding. We were back in 2006, this was on our federal agenda. We were working with Congresswoman Bigger to try to get funding. Never could get the funding, never could get funding. Then the WRDA, Water Resource Development Act, was being reauthorized for a number of years. Finally got reauthorized last year. The president signed it. We were identified as one of 10 New Start projects, which is a great thing. The process has changed a little bit, we believe, for the better. It's more streamlined, but this is the process in a nutshell. You have to do a scoping part of the project, scope out the project, kind of get an estimate of the cost. Then you go back to Congress, and it's basically a question of authorization and appropriation. We're authorized, we're not appropriated yet, but we have a 50-50 match requirement. Local matches, state, DNR, DuPage County, Will County. The Army Corps is the federal partner, they're bringing 50%. So the match, as I put a memo together for the previous meeting, is maximum 1.5 million for the entire local match, 1.5 for the federal match. That would be broken out, 750,000 by DNR, 375,000 for Will County, 375 for DuPage. So we're basically paying a quarter of the match, and that's over 3 years. So it's 170, or 125, excuse me, over 3 years. The challenge, which was very frustrating in our call on Friday, was DNR is not willing to commit to anything because of their budget consideration. They're being told no, 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 which at this point, we only need $25,000 local match total to move the project forward to do the scoping exercise, 25 by us, 25 by the feds. Nothing has happened. We said we had to go back to our respective boards, DuPage County reps and myself and the Land Use Department and our stormwater chairman was there. But what we would like to bring back to you next month, once we have a document for you to look at, is possibly DuPage and Will just to split this initial scoping work. So we would have to come up with 12,500 to get the initial scoping work done. We believe that's a small amount of money and a good investment to move the project to the next stage. But between now and then, we'd also like to get some level of commitment from DNR, the Department of Natural Resources, that they're willing to commit to their piece of this, because this is a major economic project for this whole region, and it's economic damage, it's good for the communities. We're going to try to solicit donations from the local communities to see if they'll partner, but at this point, we're not asking for action today. I just want to update you. And what
Let's
we're-
just table it then.
Motion to
Or
table.
remove it, remove it or table it?
Table.
Motion to table it.
Well, remove it,
Table.
remove it, you can bring it back when you're ready.
I know.
I mean, I'm going to bring it back next month, so.
Okay, then
Then
we'll
we'll
table.
table.
Motion to table.
Yeah,
You
motion.
talked
Okay,
to RC about
second, all in favor?
the
Aye.
medical
Okay,
situation too,
next
right?
is
Where they
the,
renamed.
Sheriff seized vehicles, surplus and authorizing disposal. So moved, second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next is amended Title VI policy due to the RTA directives.
I'm going to take the first one, Wendy's going to take the second one. This was something that was passed last month. Unfortunately, after you took action, we got some additional direction from the RTA. They didn't like the language we used, which originally I thought they were okay with, we thought they were okay with. So in your document, it's in your file or in your iPad, we changed it to just say that Will County strives to always include a diverse membership in all our committees and working groups. The Paratransit Coordination Council seeks to have a diverse racial, gender, and geographic composition that represents all areas of the county, which we tried to do.
So moved, second by Mr. Brooks, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next, authorizing the county executive to execute the section 5310 of the technical service agreement between the Regional Transportation Authority and Will County for contract number, you can see the contract.
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Good
New
job.
hires for the ICT department. Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Replacement hire for the records management department.
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Replacement hires for Sunny Hill Nursing Home.
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Replacement hires for the supervisor assessments office.
Moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Good. Proclamations, I hear we only had one.
We have one that's just a certificate of appreciation for a security officer at the courthouse for his efforts during a medical emergency. He had to perform CPR on a woman. And
So we're gonna
Judge
do that from the
O'Leary had
desk, or we're gonna
requested.
do that from the podium?
We were gonna let Darren read it, we can do it from the desk.
Well, I think they
Unless
were
the
gonna
judge- were they gonna
present
send
it,
co-
but
is
he
he
was
coming?
still- I believe they
Okay,
wanted
then
him
the
coming.
podium.
Okay.
I will
Motion to-
confirm that. If not, we'll have Darren do
Okay,
it.
motion to approve the proclamations.
Moved.
Second.
All in
Okay.
favor?
Aye.
Appointments by the county executive.
Moved.
Moved.
I just have a question on that.
Move second, question.
Discussion.
Who's the second? Sorry.
You Nick, wasn't the Minnetonka Fire Board, that's not up this month?
I believe it was on.
John, that's not
It's not on here.
Right.
It's on this one.
It's not on this.
What was the question, Reagan?
Minnetonka Fire Board.
You want it on there? If it's not, we'll just make a motion.
I don't.
Or you don't. So if it's not on there, you want further discussion
I
or
don't.
input?
So just pull Manuka?
No, it's not.
It's
on
not
there.
on there.
I'm not seeing it on this one.
If you say you thought it was on, we don't see it on.
I thought it was submitted last month, but
Hold off, okay, hold off on making
I
the
don't know.
motions. Go into your committee reports then if you want, and I'll check.
I don't know.
I'll
Okay.
check with Lana and see what, okay, hold off on the motion.
You know, before we get to committee reports, I'd like to talk about maybe a little bit about consolidation, Chuck's favorite subject.
Efficiencies is the word I'm using now.
Efficiencies. You know, we've had discussions about the call centers or the PSAPs or 911, whatever we want to make reference to. And even the ES3 board has talked about consolidation and that their consultants even say we should have 3, probably countywide. And we've talked about, as we've done the approach the sheriff's facility project, we've talked about, well, maybe we should ask the sheriff whether they can go to another PSAP or whatever. But now, actually, maybe we should be doing, the sheriff is I think the second or third largest call center in the county. Maybe it makes more sense to start a conversation, perhaps maybe the sheriff's department can head up, that the consolidation should take place internally. In other words, the other dispatch centers should come to the sheriff's facility. throw out an example. I mean, what I think is potential consolidations. You could have Eastcom, Lincoln Way Communication, and the Sheriff's Department, which would then be a pretty large, rather than saying, well, the sheriff's going to Lincoln Way, which doesn't have the facility. The reason this is, I think, important now is how we may size our facility. And then, of course, those other participating communities, they pay into that system. So, I don't know, is there somebody here from the sheriff's office?
They left.
So, I had some discussions with them on this. I'm just kind of throwing it out, maybe a little different approach that we haven't looked at. And it doesn't achieve overall consolidation for communication centers. But maybe we should be the consolidator. Would we be the consolidator then?
Well, the home office anyway.
Yeah, whatever. But anyway, I just kind of want to throw that out just as a potential discussion that maybe should go forward. So would Judy. Yep, go ahead.
Some meeting we just recently had, I forget exactly, but Eastcom said that they had a lot of extra space there to expand, so I don't know.
I don't know. You know what? I threw it out there. It's just generic. Maybe it's not. Maybe that's not the right combination. But I'm just saying that that's out there. Go ahead, Chuck.
But I think, and to that point, we really need to have this conversation to make some decisions, because as we go to Laraway Road and we start saying, okay, we want to build a building, that building has to be built with the whole usage in mind. And so if we're having this discussion, like Jim's talking about with the sheriff, I think it becomes important for us to have that discussion quickly. Because as this designs, and we're going to go out for an RFP soon, that has to be in the RFP. And I think, we did have some conversations with the sheriff. I think they're open to those discussions. And it's going to be now how we're going to facilitate the next level of discussion.
By the way, I'm not looking to make this a big deal today. I'm just throwing it out there as,
because it's going to need to go.
Is this a discussion that probably should take place? Whether it goes anywhere or not, I don't know, but we probably should have that discussion.
Just a very brief comment. I know we've had ETSB staff and others here before, but I think it may be useful to have someone come back and give us an update on the legislation too, because we've had a lot of discussion at the committee level at the ETSB board, and there still are a number of kind of unrelated issues that I think this board needs to be engaged in with the ETSB.
We're going to have, there's a lot going on right now.
But from frustration from a board member level, which I'm one of those, Suzanne's the other, and there's a couple others from the county, but that legislation that's as proposed is going to force us to consolidate. But it also theoretically provides some financial support, but I think it would be good that we start the conversation now, so we're ready to move, not only because we want to move on the sheriff's facility, but also we're ready to respond. Because there's some sticky issues with, Lincoln Way has their own board of governing folks, Eastcom has their own, and we have you all as with the sheriff and overseeing our.
I just forwarded some of Bruce of what they were at with the different legislators, where they're asking us for a little response, but it's somewhat late, but I know you guys want to see copies of this, of everything that they're proposing.
Yeah. But we should start the discussion. And by the way, it's not necessarily, for us, it would fit into perhaps potentially new space. It's really not space that's the cost, it's the cost of operating. And, it's just inefficient. I mean, and I don't know what Eastcom is, but if they're only doing 15 calls a day, that's pretty expensive. But they pay for that cost. Whoever participates, they pay for those costs. So
Eastcom's, I've been in this they move. Eastcom space is pretty small. Lincoln Way has a little bit of room for growth, and our sheriff's department is just inadequate. So they all, it
would make sense for them to talk.
Right. There's some interest in among those groups, I think. At least
I think there is too.
Right.
There's been some overtures. So, anyways, it's just to start the discussion. Tom?
The city of Chicago has one call center, and there are 3 million people or whatever. We could all fit into Westcom. They have a new tornado-proof building. We could move all of our dispatches.
West Common.
And maybe, and that's another discussion, I'm not saying that's not another, I think discussion's open, but I think, I don't know if Westcom has the capacity.
They could, but the other issue why, years ago, there was a study, I was told, I never read the study from years ago, but there was a call for 2 or maybe 3, I think.
Three.
Westcom, Joliet, and another one. And the reason we have some redundancy is that there's, in case something were to happen to the one, because, I'll just take a quick funny story. FEMA did a drill a couple years ago downtown Chicago, and their scenario was a dirty bomb at like Wabash and like Madison. Well, the fallout from that took out all of Cook County and Chicago's command centers, their 911 center, and where was their exit route? To Will County, DuPage County.
Yeah.
I said,
There's those dollars to
sorry,
talk about
you didn't
again.
give us any UASC money, and we're not letting you in, so.
Should've shared.
So, right.
Well, but I think, maybe it's been on Tom's comment, the problem is it's not the practicality or of, makes sense. It's about, it's a very parochial issue for people.
We're down to 6, which we
Started
were
with
at
18.
8 or 9, yeah, 18 at one point. So we're headed in the right direction. But right now it's Romeoville, Westcom, Joliet, Lincoln Way, Eastcom, and the sheriff. That's it.
And I mean, I can see like a Romeoville going and eventually consolidating with Westcom. You have to look at other capacities for the people to consolidate, I think, too, so. Okay, so.
Jim, can we go
let's
back
do
to the
that.
Back to the appointments, and if
Okay.
you're done on that, Reagan was right, it was emailed out to everyone when they get it, but it was not attached when it was submitted through the system. So if you can make a motion to amend to include,
Or
No,
not.
exclude, we don't want to include.
I
We're
have
not-
some concerns and I'd like
You know,
some further discussion on that, so.
we're not
Okay,
gonna
so-
include it this month. Reagan, you have discussions with your concerns with the county executive.
okay, so then the appointments, the way they are, can be approved.
Motion to approve as listed.
Okay. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we get the committee reports, land use, Tom.
We got 3 zoning cases and 2 resolutions. The one controversial one is in Bolingbrook, which was denied outdoor storage. So that may be controversial.
Okay, any questions for Tom? Okay, Mike, finance?
Yeah, we've got about 10 items. Quarterly fund balances to approve, resolution reflecting the approved budget revisions for adult redeploy, appropriation for the patient center medical home grant funds, amending the 2015 budget to reflect the depth of the GO bonds, transfer appropriations for miscellaneous expenses, 304 fund, amending the public transportation budget for 2 grants, authorizing county executive to execute the necessary tax documents, transferring and increasing appropriations in various county budgets to fund year-end shortfalls, and we have the monthly corporate fund budget to actual report and the final 2014 levy numbers.
Okay, any questions for Mike?
Jim?
Yes?
Not on there, but I thought we were, one in land use about Bolingbrook's request, we were talking about table that maybe, so we get more,
You want to go back to that with the other one? We will, there was some discussion whether we table it to give the property owner, this was at our caucus, at Republican caucus, that we table it to give the property owner some additional time to come into compliance.
He's had 12 months, he's got 8 months or
He's
something
been
already.
playing this game for a long time out there.
Okay, so I'm just saying, this is
No way.
part of the discussion. I mean, I don't know, everybody, I think it's gonna be a mixed bag on the vote. So, we'll just, I'm just saying, so.
I think the move to table it was because what was discussed, and if we're wrong, please clear, that this gentleman, yes, has a lot of things that people ask him to do. He was getting some things done. There are a few things that are still need to be done, and if we pass this and allow him to go forward with conditions, will he get to those conditions right away or not? And I think there was wanting to be some discussions on, are there other conditions or other things that he needs to do before we pass this to make sure that he's heading in the right direction? So,
Quite-
I would be
quite
okay with tabling.
Quite
this.
honestly, I don't know even if you turn it down.
Because there's no reason to go in, there's no reason.
He's
I-
had months to.
But let me say this.
But what is the reason for
Here's
him to make these changes
even-
real quick?
Even if you turn it down, you tell you what you think the remedy is when he doesn't do anything. You'll be in court for the next 5, 6 years. I mean, you know.
Well, he's got a court date.
Yeah, so, you know, I watch these court dates go on for years. Mary, you've had some of these things in court for 10 years.
Yeah, it's sometimes.
I don't mean that you're not doing
So-
not doing your job. I'm just saying, is the court is so reluctant to infringe on property rights and throw somebody off their property, or give a court order,
It's just.
or give a court order that we'll go in and clean it.
Said he would fix it, then he had more time to fix it, he still couldn't get up to the time when he's coming up in front of the county.
It's just, it's waiting on damages.
He's 83.
Right.
Anyways, I'm just saying that turning it down was not gonna get what you want. And that's compliance to clean up. But anyway, people will vote the way they wanna vote, yeah.
Right.
Then it'll become more of a court matter than it will be a county matter, that's all. Okay. All right, Public Works, Mr. Gould?
We have a lot, 22 resolutions this month, most of which are awards of contracts. We have 2 resolutions that are going to lower speed limits in the county. And then, of course, the resolutions that pay for the award, so.
Any questions?
There's a lot on there.
Okay, judicial, does anybody want to comment on anything on judicial?
It's a request by Lakewood Falls for us to do additional traffic, or do traffic enforcement there.
Which is common. Okay. All right, any questions on judicial? Okay. Public health and safety?
Oh, sorry. There isn't anything coming forward that I have on my list. We did various different things at our committee meeting, but nothing's moving forward besides new hires and reports from Sunny Hill.
You'll have reports you've got the Regional Office of Education report you just placed on file.
Okay, so that's all I have.
That's all that's only action.
It was a week easy.
Any questions for,
At Sunny Hill. too. Good.
And we we did have lunch at Sunny Hill. We had our meeting at Sunny Hill. It was very nice. We had actually quite a few people attend. I had a caucus. I was surprised I was going to because our meeting before that lasted so long. We did eat lunch. Half of us had the, like a fresh fruit plate, and the other half had a roasted pork. And the food was really good. I was really pleased with the food and the service, and everything was good. And so it was a very nice meeting, and they were happy to have us, and they said we should have every public health meeting there.
Well, and I might want to advise people to be out next week to, get the ice cream or this week. Actually, they're getting
Today at
ice
2,
cream.
come see me.
Yeah, and I'm doing it on Friday. You guys that is a lot of fun. If you haven't had a chance to do that sometime.
I've had ice cream there.
But go out and serve it at the residents and serve them ice cream and have conversation. It is.
Ice cream. I'm there all the time.
then we'll go to legislative, Suzanne?
Yeah, I know what we're not talking about, but, we just had very lively maintenance, everything's going down in Springfield, but no, nothing much. The Washington DC trip, we kind of grazed upon, but no, we're not talking about that.
All right. Any questions for Suzanne? Thank you, Suzanne. Kevin Cruz, Andrew?
Awarding the contract for the state's attorney's office, the annex.
Okay, any questions for Megan? Executive, any questions for me? Okay, then we do have a need for an executive session, Mary. Before I get into there, I will take public comments now. If anyone wants to make any public comments. I'll take comments from committee members, board members. Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to go to executive.
What about the agenda? Do we do that after?
I'll do that.
Will it come out?
You know what, I think it will come out, just in
okay.
case, I don't know what
Okay.
this entails,
Okay.
just in case. So I'll entertain a motion to go.
So move to go into executive session.
Right there.
For what?
I'm gonna keep everybody, right?
Yep.
So I know I have a
Yeah.
quorum.
I'm in that.
You can do it for
Motion.
Pending litigation.
Pending litigation.
Mayor,
Yes.
Brooks,
Yes.
Freitag,
Yes.
Mary's gonna make this.
Frizolo?
Yes.
Gould?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
O'Gala?
Yes.
Weigel? And Eustace.
Yes. Everybody? Motion to adjourn. So moved. Second? All in favor? Aye.